The day I heard my father's voice from beyond the grave was the day everything changed. I wasn't supposed to be in that lawyer's office. I wasn't supposed to hear the recording. According to my sister Vanessa, I wasn't even supposed to be in the will anymore. But sometimes, justice comes from the most unexpected places. And my father had planned for betrayal all along. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The executor's office was intimidatingly pristine, all mahogany and leather with certificates lining the walls. I felt out of place in my simple black dress, the only semi-formal outfit I'd managed to pack for the funeral. Everyone else had arrived in designer morning wear, as if grief were a fashion competition. Ms. Olivia Harrington? The receptionist's voice cut through my thoughts. Mr. Whitfield will see you now. I wasn't even supposed to be here. The night before, Vanessa had called to kindly inform me that I needn't bother attending the reading of our parents' will. It would just be awkward for everyone, she'd said with that syrupy tone she used when delivering bad news she actually relished. Mom and Dad updated their trust last year. You're not in it anymore. But something, call it instinct or stubborn, defiance, made me show up anyway. Mr. Whitfield's corner office overlooked the city where I'd grown up but hardly recognized anymore. At 34, I'd spent the last decade working overseas as a humanitarian aid coordinator, while Vanessa had stayed close to home, working her way up at our father's financial firm and, apparently, into the center of our parents' world. Please sit down. Mr. Whitfield gestured to one of several chairs arranged before his desk. My sister and her husband Blake were already seated, their matching expressions of shock at my appearance almost comical. On the far side sat my brother Ethan, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable rather than annoyed. "Olivia!" Vanessa hissed, leaning toward me. "I told you yesterday." "Mrs. Harrington Wells," Mr. Whitfield cut in smoothly, addressing Vanessa by her married name. "Everyone named in the final documents has the right to be present." A flicker of confusion crossed her face. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake," he replied, opening a thick folder. "Now that everyone is here, we can begin." What followed was mostly standard legal procedure. Condolences offered, preliminary matters addressed, documents shuffled. I sat stiffly, preparing myself to endure this final confirmation of what I'd long suspected, that my choices had slowly erased me from my family's legacy. My parents hadn't approved of my career path. All that education wasted on charity cases, my father had said when I turned down a position at his firm to work with refugee resettlement programs. My mother had been equally bemused. "You could be making 6 figures, living comfortably, meeting eligible men," she'd lamented. "Instead, you're throwing your life away in dangerous countries for people you don't even know." The last time I'd seen them was 3 years ago, at Vanessa's elaborate vow renewal ceremony. The conversation had been strained, my accomplishments brushed aside while Vanessa's promotion to CFO of Dad's company was celebrated with champagne toasts. I'd left early, flying back to Jordan the next day, telling myself distance was easier, then disappointment. Then the accident happened. A head-on collision on a rainy night that took both my parents instantly. I'd flown back, numb with grief and regret over all the things left unsaid. Now, regarding the Harrington Family Trust, Mr. Whitfield's voice pulled me back to the present. There have been some unusual circumstances regarding amendments made in the past year. Vanessa straightened in her chair. My father explained everything to me. He and Mom decided to restructure after Olivia made it clear her life was elsewhere. She glanced at me. "No offense, but you weren't exactly present." "Actually," Mr. Whitfield interjected, "that's precisely what we need to discuss." He pressed a button on his desk phone. "Angela, please bring in the recording equipment." Recording equipment? Ethan spoke for the first time. What's going on? Mr. Whitfield adjusted his glasses. Your father came to see me privately, approximately 4 months ago. He made some final amendments to the trust and left specific instructions that certain information was to be shared through his own words in the event of his passing. The assistant wheeled in a small audio system, set it up efficiently, then left, closing the door behind her. This is highly irregular, Vanessa's husband Blake spoke up. He was an estate attorney himself, something he never failed to mention. Voice recordings aren't typically considered legally binding for trust modifications. The trust wasn't modified by this recording, Mr. Wells, Whitfield clarified. The legal amendments were properly documented and signed. This recording is merely your father's explanation of his decisions, which he felt would be important for everyone to hear directly from him. My stomach tightened. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear my father's voice explaining why he'd cut me out of the family legacy. Hadn't the message already been received loud and clear? Mr. Whitfield pressed play. There was a moment of silence, some rustling, and then my father's voice filled the room, that commanding baritone that had dominated family dinners and company boardrooms alike. If you're listening to this, then I'm gone. A pause, a heavy sigh. There are things I need to say that couldn't wait for a letter to be found, or might be misplaced if left to chance. I glanced at Vanessa, whose face had gone carefully blank. First, to my son Ethan. You've always been caught in the middle, son. Not as ambitious as your sister, not as idealistic as Olivia. You've lived your life trying not to rock the boat, and I understand that better than you might think. I was once like you before I built my company, afraid to take stands. Your trust fund remains as originally established, with one condition. You must finally use that architectural degree you earned. No more managing properties for your brother-in-law's firm. Design something. Build something of your own. If after 3 years you haven't, your portion will be redistributed according to Section 12B. Ethan's face reddened. He'd always been the peacekeeper, the one who went along to get along. I hadn't realized Dad had seen through it so clearly. To Vanessa. My father's voice hardened slightly. You've been my right hand at Harrington Financial. Your mother and I have always been proud of your accomplishments, your beautiful home, your social standing. You've done everything according to plan, your plan, and admittedly, the one we encouraged. Vanessa smiled smugly at me. But plans can become prisons, her smile faltered. Last spring, when you came to me about amending the trust to reduce Olivia's portion, or as you put it, to reflect the reality of her commitment to this family, I agreed to meet with our attorneys. What you don't know is that I also hired a private investigator. The air in the room suddenly felt charged. Vanessa's posture went rigid. The investigator found something interesting, Vanessa. The trust fund your mother and I established for Emma's education, your daughter, my granddaughter, has been systematically drained over the past 5 years. Nearly $180,000, transferred in small amounts to accounts under your name and Blake's. Blake shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa's face had drained of color. Money that was meant for my granddaughter's future. When confronted with this information, Blake confessed that your household has been living significantly beyond its means. The country club memberships, the vacation homes, the private jet shares, all financed by debt and, apparently, theft from your own daughter. Ethan made a choked sound. I sat perfectly still, hardly breathing. I could have gone to the police, my father continued, his voice weary now. Instead, I chose to handle this privately, as a family matter. The amended trust reflects this choice. Vanessa, you and Blake will receive a significantly reduced portion, enough to maintain a comfortable but modest lifestyle. The remainder of what would have been your share will be placed in a new, ironclad trust for Emma, which neither of you can access under any circumstances. Additionally, you are both removed as trustees from all family financial matters. This is slander, Blake hissed, his face contorted with rage. We'll contest this immediately. Mr. Whitfield paused the recording. I should inform you, Mr. Wells, that your father-in-law provided extensive documentation supporting these claims. Contesting would mean making this information public record. Additionally, he verbally confirmed these decisions to me on 3 separate occasions and signed all amendments with witnesses present. He resumed the recording. And finally, to Olivia. My father's voice softened in a way I'd rarely heard in life. My independent daughter, the one who challenged me most, the one I understood least. I blinked rapidly, fighting unexpected tears. When Vanessa suggested removing you from the trust, she told me you didn't care about the family money anyway, that your values were elsewhere. And in reflecting on this, I realized she was right, though not in the way she intended. I braced myself for rejection. Your values have always been clear, Olivia. Even when I disagreed with your choices, you never wavered. You never compromised what you believed was right, not even for my approval, which I withheld too often and too harshly. A tear slid down my cheek. The truth is, while I was busy being disappointed that you didn't follow in my footsteps at the firm, I failed to see that you had actually embraced the most important value I claim to uphold: integrity. Your work with refugees, your commitment to helping others despite personal cost, these aren't rejections of our family. They're the purest expression of what our family should stand for. Vanessa made a sound somewhere between a scoff and a gasp. Therefore, Olivia will receive her full original portion of the trust, with an additional provision, a foundation established in our family name, with initial funding of $10 million to support refugee education initiatives. Olivia will serve as chairperson, with full discretionary control. The room went utterly silent. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Additionally, my father continued, Olivia will replace Vanessa as the majority shareholder of Harrington Financial Group, with the expectation that she will guide the company toward more socially responsible investment strategies, something I should have done years ago. This is absurd, Vanessa stood up, face flushed. She knows nothing about running a financial firm. She'll destroy everything you built. Mr. Whitfield paused the recording again. Please sit down, Mrs. Harrington Wells. There's more. Vanessa remained standing, trembling with rage. This can't be legal. He wasn't thinking clearly. We'll prove undue influence. Your father anticipated this reaction, Mr. Whitfield said calmly. Which is why he recorded this message while undergoing an independent psychological evaluation. The results, confirming his sound mind and judgment, are included with the trust documents. He resumed the recording one final time. I know this will come as a shock to all of you. Vanessa, you'll be angry. Ethan, confused. Olivia, perhaps overwhelmed. But I've had time to think about the legacy I want to leave. And it isn't just financial success or social status. It's a family that stands for something meaningful. There was a long pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. Olivia, I never told you this, but I've followed your work from afar. Those schools you helped build in Lebanon, the resettlement program in Greece. I read every article, every report. I was proud but too stubborn to say it. I'm sorry for that. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears flowing freely now. I'm trusting you with both our family's wealth and its conscience. And Vanessa. His tone hardened again. This isn't punishment. It's a chance to rediscover values beyond material success, to rebuild trust, starting with your daughter. The recording ended. The silence that followed felt endless. Finally, Mr. Whitfield spoke. There are, of course, many more details too. Discuss regarding the specific provisions and responsibilities. But that covers the major changes to the trust. Vanessa turned to me, her expression a mixture of shock and fury. You somehow orchestrated this. All these years playing the selfless humanitarian while secretly poisoning Dad against me. That's enough, Ethan said sharply, surprising us all. You heard Dad. You stole from Emma, from your own daughter. Blake stood. We're leaving. Our attorneys will be in touch. As you wish, Mr. Whitfield said evenly. But I should mention one final thing. Your father stipulated that anyone contesting these provisions automatically forfeits their entire portion, which would then be redirected to the foundation Ms. Harrington will oversee. Vanessa and Blake froze in the doorway. So you might want to consider carefully before pursuing litigation, he finished. After they stormed out, Ethan approached me awkwardly. I had no idea about any of this. About Dad following your work, or about what Vanessa did. Neither did I whispered, still processing everything. For what it's worth, he said. I always thought you were the brave one. He squeezed my shoulder gently. I should go check on Emma. She doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this. After Ethan left, I sat alone with Mr. Whitfield, struggling to comprehend how dramatically my life had just changed. There are many decisions ahead, he said kindly, but they don't all need to be made today. I nodded absently, then asked, the question that was echoing in my mind. Did he really follow my work all those years? Mr. Whitfield smiled slightly. He kept a file. Articles, photographs, impact reports. He even anonymously donated to several of your projects. He pulled out a thick manila envelope from his desk drawer. He asked that I give you this privately. Inside was a collection of news clippings, printed emails, and photographs spanning my entire career abroad. Sticky notes in my father's handwriting. Annotated many of them. Innovative approach here. Excellent negotiation with local officials. She gets results where others failed. At the bottom of the envelope was a handwritten letter, dated just 2 weeks before the accident. My dearest Olivia, it began. I've lived my life by numbers on spreadsheets, measuring success in dollars and cents. You've measured yours in lives changed and communities rebuilt. It took me far too long to understand that your balance sheet shows the greater profit. I hope someday to find the courage to tell you this in person. Until then, know that I've always loved you, even when I couldn't show it. And I've always been proud, even when I couldn't say it. It was signed simply, Dad. I pressed the letter to my chest and allowed myself, finally, to fully grieve, for the father I'd lost, for the relationship we might have had, and for the unexpected chance I now had to honor his final surprising wish. To use our family's resources to continue the work he'd secretly admired all along. When I finally looked up, Mr. Whitfield was tactfully organizing papers, giving me space for my emotions. What happens now? I asked, my voice steady despite the tears. He looked at me over his glasses. That, Ms. Harrington, is entirely up to you. But if your work abroad is any indication, I suspect you'll find a way to honor both your father's legacy and your own principles. For the first time since returning home for the funeral, I felt a glimmer of purpose cutting through the grief. The road ahead would be challenging. Vanessa wouldn't accept this easily. The company would resist change, and I had so much to learn. But I also had something I never expected to receive from my father. Validation that my path, different as it was, had value. I carefully folded my father's letter and placed it in my purse. Then I straightened my shoulders and said words I never thought I'd hear myself say. I'd like to schedule a meeting with the board of Harrington Financial. It's time they met their new majority shareholder. Mr. Whitfield smiled. I think your father would approve. As I left his office, stepping into the bright afternoon sunlight, I felt both the weight of new responsibility and the lightness of vindication. The sister who had tried to erase me from my family's legacy had instead catapulted me into its center. And from here, I could change far more lives than I ever could from a field office abroad. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected packages. Sometimes the stories we tell ourselves about who values us and why are incomplete. And sometimes, the greatest gift we can receive is the truth, even when it arrives too late for the conversations we wish we could have had. But it wasn't too late for what mattered most, honoring both where I came from and what I believed in. That, I realized, was the true inheritance my father had left me. Not the money or the company, but the recognition that different paths can lead to the same essential values. That was a legacy worth building upon. "Thank you, Dad," I whispered to the sky as I walked toward an uncertain but suddenly promising future. "I won't let you down." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The Harrington Financial Group headquarters stood like a glass and steel monument to my father's ambition. 40 stories of prime downtown real estate with the family name emblazoned across the top in illuminated letters. As my rideshare pulled up to the entrance, I felt like an imposter approaching a fortress I had no right to enter. "Good luck in there," the driver said, noting my anxious expression in the rearview mirror. I needed more than luck. 3 days had passed since the reading of the will, and I'd spent them in a crash course on corporate finance, frantically reviewing company reports and industry analyses Mr. Whitfield had provided. My background in international aid management had given me solid organizational skills, but running a financial firm worth billions was an entirely different challenge. The lobby was all marble and understated elegance. Heads turned as I approached the security desk in my simple navy dress, the only business attire I'd packed for what I'd expected to be a brief, somber visit home. "Olivia Harrington to see. Patricia Winters, executive assistant to the CEO," I stated, working to keep my voice steady. The security guard's eyebrows lifted slightly at the name Harrington. "One moment, please." He made a call, speaking in hushed tones. Minutes later, a silver-haired woman in an impeccable pantsuit emerged from the elevator bank. Patricia Winters had been my father's right hand for over 20 years, managing both his professional and often personal affairs with terrifying efficiency. "Ms. Harrington," she said warmly, taking my hands in hers. "Welcome home, and welcome to the company." Her genuine smile caught me off guard. "You know, Mr. Whitfield briefed the executive committee yesterday," she explained, leading me toward the private elevator. "Your sister was vocal in her opposition." "I can imagine," I murmured. Patricia lowered her voice. "Between us, many of us are relieved. Your sister's leadership style these past few years has been challenging." The executive floor was hushed when we arrived, conversations pausing as we passed glass-walled conference rooms. Patricia led me to my father's office, now mine, according to the paperwork, a corner suite with breathtaking views of the city. "The board is assembled in the main conference room," she informed me. "They've been waiting for 30 minutes. Vanessa's idea of establishing dominance, I presume?" Patricia's slight smile confirmed my suspicion. "Your father always arrived precisely on time. He believed making people wait was disrespectful of their time." She checked her watch. "It's 10 now." I squared my shoulders. "Then we shouldn't keep them waiting any longer." The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 12 executives in expensive suits sat around a massive mahogany table, expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. Vanessa occupied the chair at the head of the table, my father's former seat, her posture radiating defiance. "You're late," she said sharply. "Actually, I'm precisely on time," I replied, placing my portfolio on the table. "And I believe you're in my seat." A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face before the mask of confidence returned. This meeting is merely a formality. The board needs to hear the ridiculous provisions of Dad's will, and then we can discuss how to contest it effectively. An older man with silver temples cleared his throat. Perhaps we should begin with introductions for Ms. Harrington's benefit. Thank you, that would be helpful, I said, maintaining eye contact with Vanessa. But first, to avoid wasting everyone's time, let me clarify something. I am now the majority shareholder of Harrington Financial Group. This isn't up for debate or contest. The legal documentation is ironclad, as I'm sure Mr. Whitfield explained. Temporary insanity, Vanessa began, is not applicable given the psychological evaluation conducted simultaneously with the recording, I finished for her. Nor is undue influence, given that I was overseas and hadn't spoken to our father in months. Now, shall we proceed with introductions? Or would you prefer to continue discussing legal challenges that won't succeed? Vanessa's face flushed crimson. After a tense moment, she stood, gathering her papers. Fine. You want to play CEO? Go ahead. We'll see how long you last before you destroy everything Dad built. She gestured to a man beside her. Blake, we're leaving. Her husband started to rise, but I addressed him directly. Actually, Blake, as corporate counsel, your presence is required for this meeting. Company bylaws specify legal representation must be present for any leadership transition. Discussion. His eyes darted between Vanessa and me, clearly caught in an impossible position. Or, I continued, if you prefer to resign your position, that's also acceptable. Patricia can have HR process the paperwork immediately. The implicit threat hung in the air. Resign now, and the generous severance package disappeared. Blake slowly sat back down. Fine, Vanessa spat. I'll wait to hear how you plan to run this company into the ground. She took a seat at the far end of the table. For the next hour, introductions proceeded around the table. I listened carefully, noting who seemed genuinely engaged versus those clearly aligned with Vanessa. The CFO, Marcus Chen, struck me as particularly thoughtful, asking insightful questions about my background in nonprofit management. You might be surprised how many skills transfer, I told him. International aid work requires strict financial controls, measurable outcomes, and the ability to work with diverse stakeholders under pressure. The currency may be different, but the principles of effective management remain. By the time everyone had spoken, the atmosphere had shifted subtly. Not warm by any means, but less openly hostile, more cautiously curious. I imagine you all have questions about my intentions for the company, I said, standing to address the room. So let me be direct. Harrington Financial will continue to be a profitable enterprise. What will change is how we define and achieve that profit. I moved to the smartboard and pulled up the presentation I'd stayed up all night preparing. These are the preliminary projections for integrating ESG principles into our investment strategy. For the next 30 minutes, I outlined a vision for transitioning a portion of our portfolio towards socially responsible investments without sacrificing returns. The research was solid. I'd drawn from successful case studies of firms that had made similar pivots. When I finished, Marcus was the first to speak. These projections are ambitious, but not unreasonable. J.P. Morgan and Goldman have made similar moves recently with positive results. This is absurd, Vanessa interjected. Our clients don't care about social impact. They care about returns. Actually, said a woman who'd introduced herself as the head of client relations, we've had increasing inquiries about ESG options, particularly from younger inheritors and tech wealth. We've been losing accounts to Morgan Stanley specifically because of their green portfolio. The conversation evolved into a surprisingly productive discussion. Not everyone was convinced, but more were engaged than I had dared hope. As the DTAC meeting drew to a close, I addressed Vanessa directly. I'd like to meet with you privately to discuss your role moving forward. There's a place for you here if you want it. Her laugh was bitter. Working for my bleeding heart sister? I don't think so. Consider it carefully, I advised. Your expertise is valuable, and family businesses work best when family remains involved. She gathered her things without responding and swept from the room. Blake lingered awkwardly. She'll calm down, he said, not meeting my eyes. About the trust for Emma. We never meant... That's between you, Vanessa, and eventually Emma. I cut him off. As for your position here, your performance will be evaluated like everyone else's. Fair warning, I'll be conducting a full audit of the legal department's handling of client accounts. His face paled slightly. Of course, I look forward to it. After the boardroom cleared, Patricia returned with a stack of documents requiring immediate attention. As we went through them, she provided invaluable context on ongoing projects and personnel dynamics. Your sister has been positioning allies in key departments, she noted, particularly in compliance and client relations. Not surprising, I sighed. What about the foundation dad established? Do we have the paperwork for that? Patricia handed me another folder. $10 million in initial funding, with provisions for additional contributions from company profits. The structure is flexible. He wanted you to shape it according to your expertise. I opened the folder, scanning the mission statement my father had drafted to leverage financial resources for sustainable humanitarian impact worldwide, with a focus on refugee education and empowerment. The words blurred as unexpected tears welled up. Even in death, my father was giving me a chance to bridge my two worlds, the financial acumen of the Harrington legacy and the humanitarian commitment I'd forged on my own. Are you all right? Patricia asked gently. I nodded, composing myself. Just processing everything. It's a lot to absorb. Your father believed you could handle it, she said simply. He wouldn't have chosen you otherwise. As evening fell, I found myself alone in my office, staring out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. How did the board meeting go? Want to grab dinner? Emma's been asking about her Aunt Olivia. I smiled, typing back. Survived. Dinner sounds perfect. Does Emma still like that pizza place on Westheimer? His response came quickly. She'd eat there every night if we let her. 7 p.m.? See you then. I set my phone down and turned to the large portrait of my father hanging on the wall. His stern expression seemed different now that I knew what had been beneath the surface. I wish we'd had more time, I said to the empty room. I wish I'd known you were watching, that you cared. We wasted so many years. But dwelling on regrets wouldn't honor his unexpected faith in me. Instead, I opened my laptop and began drafting a more detailed plan for the foundation. This would be my true legacy, not just preserving his company, but transforming it into something that reflected both his business acumen and my humanitarian values. A bridge between worlds that had seemed irreconcilable. The pizza restaurant was noisy and bright, a stark contrast to the hushed corporate environment I'd been in all day. Emma spotted me first, waving frantically from a corner booth. Aunt Olivia, she called, bouncing in her seat. At 8 years old, she was all gangly limbs and boundless energy, with none of her mother's calculation in her open face. I slid into the booth beside her, accepting her enthusiastic hug. Hey, kiddo, you've grown about a foot since I saw you last. 3¼ inches, she corrected seriously. I marked it on my door. Ethan smiled across the table. She keeps precise records. Must be the Harrington genes. Speaking of Harringtons, I said carefully, have you spoken with Vanessa today? His expression darkened. Briefly, she's processing. That's a diplomatic way of putting it. Mom says you're trying to ruin Grandpa's company, Emma announced, reaching for a breadstick. But Dad says you're just making it different, not ruined. I shot Ethan a grateful look. Your dad's right. change doesn't mean destruction. Sometimes it's how things grow stronger. Like when my teacher moved our desks into groups instead of rows, Emma nodded wisely. Joey cried because he liked the old way, but now we do better at math problems. Together. Exactly like that. I laughed, impressed by her perspective. As we ate, Emma regaled me with stories about school and her soccer team, while Ethan filled me in on his life. He'd been working for Blake's property management firm, but admitted he'd never been passionate about it. Dad was right, he confessed. I've been playing it safe, not following through on architecture. I've got dreams sitting in drawers, designs I sketch at night but never show anyone. It's not too late, I said. Dad gave you that ultimatum, for a reason. Yeah, but starting over at 36, with a mortgage and car payments? Better than waking up at 56 with the same regrets, I pointed out. Besides, I might know a company that's going to need an architect for some international school projects. His eyes widened. The foundation? I nodded. Let's talk. When you have some designs ready. Emma tugged my sleeve. Are you staying home now, Aunt Olivia? Mom says you live in dirty tents. I laughed. I've lived in many places, some with tents, some without. But yes, I'll be staying here for now. Good, she declared, because I need someone to teach me about other countries, for my global citizens project. As Emma outlined her ambitious school project, I felt a small piece of my heart healing. Whatever happened with Vanessa, this connection with my niece and brother was worth preserving. Family wasn't just about inheritance and legacies. It was about these moments, this pizza parlor, this child's unfiltered curiosity. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, determined to continue building momentum. Patricia met me with a concerned expression. We may have a situation, she said, ushering me inside. Vanessa spent yesterday afternoon meeting with our top 10 clients. 3 have called requesting transfers of their accounts. My stomach dropped. She's trying to sabotage the company? It appears so. She's suggesting to clients that the company is undergoing a radical shift that might jeopardize their investments. I took a deep breath, tamping down the flare of anger. Get me the contact information for those clients, and schedule a company-wide meeting for 9 a.m. By 8:30, I'd made personal calls to all 3 wavering clients, assuring them of continuity while being transparent about gradual changes. 2 agreed to hold off on any decisions. The 3rd remained skeptical but open to a face-to-face meeting. At 9 sharp, I stood before the assembled company employees, over 200 people whose livelihoods were now, indirectly, my responsibility. Many of you know me only as Robert Harrington's other daughter, I began. The one who didn't follow the expected path. You've probably heard rumors about changes coming, possibly dramatic ones that might affect your jobs and this company's future. The tension in the room was palpable. So let me be clear. Harrington Financial Group remains committed to excellence, to client service, and to profitable growth. What will evolve is how we define success and the impact we have beyond our balance sheet. I outlined my vision, not just the ESG investment strategy, but a company culture that valued work-life balance, that recognized multiple forms of contribution, that saw profit as necessary but not sufficient for true success. My father built this company by recognizing opportunities others missed, I concluded. The world is changing. Investors, especially younger ones, increasingly want their money to reflect their values. We can lead that change or be left behind by it. I'm choosing to lead, and I'm asking you to join me. As I stepped away from the podium, the applause was tentative but genuine. Change was always frightening, but I'd offered a vision that didn't require sacrificing what they valued about the company. Back in my office, Patricia informed me that Vanessa had just entered the building and was headed up. Should I intercept? Her? She asked. No, I replied. We need to have this conversation eventually. Vanessa burst in without knocking, her face tight with anger. How dare you address my employees without consulting me? They're company employees, I corrected calmly. And as CEO and majority shareholder, I don't actually need to consult you. This is still my company, she insisted, pacing the office. I've given everything to it for years while you were off playing humanitarian. You can't just waltz in with your bleeding heart idealism and change everything. I studied my sister, really looked at her for perhaps the first time in years. Beneath the designer outfit and perfect makeup, I saw exhaustion. Strain around her eyes, the burden of always needing to appear flawless, in control. Sit down, Vanessa, I said quietly. Please. Something in my tone made her comply, though her posture remained rigid. You're right that you've given everything. To this company, I acknowledged. Your time, your energy, your focus. But at what cost? You've been taking money from Emma's education fund. Your marriage appears to be built on maintaining appearances. When was the last time you did something simply because it brought you joy, not status? Don't psychoanalyze me, she snapped. You don't know anything about my life. No, I don't, I agreed. Because we haven't really talked in years. But I do know something about pressure and expectations. About trying to measure up to an impossible standard. Her eyes flickered, a momentary crack in the armor. Dad didn't choose me because I'm better than you, I continued softly. He chose me because he saw what his value system had done to you, what it had cost you, and he didn't want that for the company's future. So I'm the cautionary tale? Bitterness edged her voice. Or maybe you're being offered a chance to redefine success on your own terms. I leaned forward. Your position as Chief Strategy Officer still stands. Your expertise is valuable. But maybe with less pressure, with different metrics for success, you could find balance again. She laughed harshly. Working for my little sister? No thanks. Working with me, I corrected. And if not, the severance package is generous. But before you decide, ask yourself, what do you actually want, Vanessa? Not what Dad wanted, not what looks impressive at cocktail parties. What would make you proud of yourself at the end of each day? For a moment, vulnerability flashed across her face, so briefly I might have imagined it. Then the mask returned. Keep your amateur psychology to yourself, she said, standing. I'll be consulting with my own attorneys about next steps. As she reached the door, I called after her. You know where to find me if you change your mind. And Vanessa, Emma misses you. Maybe start there. After she left, I sat in the stillness, contemplating the road ahead. The company transition would be challenging. The family healing, perhaps even more so. But for the first time, I felt equal to the task. My phone chimed with an email notification. It was from Mr. Whitfield, with documents for the foundation's formation attached. The subject line read simply, Your father would be proud. I opened my notebook and began to write, sketching out not just a business plan but a vision for integration, of profit and purpose, of financial acumen and humanitarian values, of the seemingly separate parts of myself. The path wouldn't be easy, but it would be authentic. And in the end, perhaps that was the greatest inheritance my father had left me. Not the company or the money, but the validation of the path I'd chosen, and the courage to continue forging it, now with resources I'd never imagined having at my disposal. Outside my window, the city stretched toward the horizon, full of possibilities and challenges awaiting my response. I was ready. 3 weeks into my unexpected role as CEO of Harrington Financial Group, I found myself staring at quarterly projections in my office well past midnight. The transition had been grueling. Endless meetings, client reassurances, and the steep learning curve of financial regulations. Despite my background in managing multi-million-dollar aid programs, Corporate finance operated in a different universe with its own language and unspoken rules. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Just checking you're still alive. Haven't heard from you in days." I smiled tiredly and typed back, "Barely. Drowning in prospectuses and SEC filings. Rain check on Sunday lunch?" His response came quickly. "Nope, Emma's orders. She's made you a welcome home sign and everything. 1 p.m., no excuses." Before I could reply, my office phone rang, unusual for this hour. I hesitated before answering. "Olivia Harrington speaking." "Ms. Harrington, this is security. There's someone here insisting on seeing you. Says it's urgent." "Who is it?" "A Mr. James Torres. Says he's your former colleague." I gasped slightly. James had been my deputy director at the refugee resettlement program in Jordan. We'd worked closely for 3 years, navigating complex international aid challenges together. I hadn't spoken to him since rushing home for my parents' funeral. "Send him up, please." Minutes later, James appeared at my office door, his tall frame silhouetted against the hallway light. He looked exactly as I remembered: salt and pepper beard, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and the slightly rumpled appearance of someone who prioritized work over personal maintenance. "The prodigal humanitarian returns to capitalism," he joked, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "James," I stood to embrace him. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in Amman?" "Emergency consultation with the State Department," he explained, settling into a chair. "But that's not why I'm here at midnight. I saw the press release about your new position. Harrington Financial Group pivots towards socially responsible investment under new leadership. Quite the career change." I sighed, recognizing the mixture of confusion and judgment in his tone. "It's complicated. Must be for you to abandon the Salam School project weeks before opening." There was no mistaking the accusation now. 50 refugee children, Olivia. The curriculum you designed. The teachers you trained. They're all asking when Director Olivia is coming back. Guilt washed over me. In the whirlwind of the trust revelation and company transition, I'd been postponing the difficult conversation with my international colleagues. My leave of absence had extended without clear communication about my future plans. "I didn't abandon them," I said firmly. "I had a family emergency that evolved into this." I gestured at the office around me, and now I have the opportunity to direct substantial resources toward projects like Salam, more resources than we ever had access to before. James leaned forward, eyes intense. "Resources aren't leadership, Liv. Those kids don't need another distant financial benefactor. They need the woman who sat on the floor with them learning Arabic nursery rhymes, the one who knew their names and stories." His words cut deep, touching my own doubts about the path I now found myself on. Was I betraying my principles by operating from a corporate office instead of on the ground? Was I rationalizing a comfortable retreat to privilege? "I'm trying to honor both worlds," I said quietly, "to bridge them in a way that creates lasting impact." "Noble," James acknowledged. "But bridges need anchors on both shores to stand. Right now, you're floating away from the work that defined you." We talked for another hour, about the Salam project, about the foundation I was establishing, about the tension between direct service and systemic change. When James finally left, promising to visit again before returning to Jordan, I sat alone with my thoughts, more unsettled than I'd been since reading my father's letter. Had I made the right choice? Or was I betraying my life's mission for a corner office and family validation? The following Sunday, I arrived at Ethan's modest suburban home precisely at 1 p.m., bearing a plant for his garden and art supplies for Emma. The normalcy of the scene, a barbecue grill smoking on the patio, neighbors chatting over fences, children's bikes strewn across the driveway, felt both foreign and comforting after weeks in the corporate fishbowl. Emma flung open the door before I could knock, brandishing a colorful poster. "Aunt Olivia, look what I made." The sign read, "Welcome home, Aunt Olivia," in rainbow letters, surrounded by surprisingly skilled drawings of various global landmarks. The Eiffel Tower, the pyramids, and what appeared to be a refugee tent with a red cross on it. "This is beautiful, Emma," I said, genuinely touched. "How did you know about these places?" "I looked up where you worked on Dad's computer," she explained proudly. "Did you really live in tents sometimes?" "Sometimes," I confirmed, following her inside, though more often in very small apartments. Ethan appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "The prodigal sister returns. We were starting to think the corporate world had swallowed you whole." I winced at the echo of James's words. "Sorry I've been scarce. The learning curve is steep." "Well, you're here now," he said, giving me a quick hug. "And corporate talk is banned for the next 3 hours. Emma's orders." Lunch was delicious, simple. Burgers and homemade potato salad, miles away from the catered executive meals I'd been subsisting on. Ethan had a natural ease as a father, listening attentively to Emma's school stories and gently redirecting her boundless energy when needed. I found myself envying their comfortable routine, the uncomplicated joy of their relationship. After the meal, Emma insisted on showing me her room, particularly her Global Citizens project, which had expanded considerably. One wall was covered with a hand-drawn map where she'd marked all the places I'd worked, with facts about each country scribbled in the margins. "Dad helped with the research," she explained, "but I did all the drawing. Did you know Jordan has one of the biggest refugee camps in the whole world? And you worked there." "I did," I confirmed, studying her detailed work. "You've done amazing research, Emma." "Mom says I shouldn't tell people my aunt works with refugees because it's political," she said matter-of-factly. "But Dad says helping people isn't political. It's just being good." I glanced at Ethan, who had appeared in the doorway. His expression was a mixture of pride and apology. "Your dad is right," I told Emma firmly. "Helping people in crisis isn't about politics. It's about recognizing our shared humanity." Emma beamed. "That's what I'm writing in my essay. Can you help me? Nobody in my class has a real expert in their family." "I'd be honored," I said, my throat suddenly tight. While Emma gathered her school materials, Ethan gestured for me to join him in the hallway. "Sorry about that comment about Vanessa," he said quietly. "Things have been tense since the will reading. She barely speaks to me now, and when she does visit Emma, she says things." "It's not your fault," I assured him. "How is Emma handling all this?" He sighed. "She misses her mom. Vanessa used to take her shopping every weekend, but now she's always too busy. I'm worried about the effect of all this on her." "Have you considered family therapy?" I suggested. "This situation is complicated for adults to navigate, let alone an 8-year-old. "I've tried," he admitted. "Vanessa refuses, says there's nothing wrong with her, so why would she need therapy?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed insistently. Marcus Chen's name flashed on the screen. Our CFO rarely called on weekends unless it was urgent. "I'm sorry, I should take this," I told Ethan, stepping into the guest bathroom for privacy. "Olivia," Marcus's voice was tight. "We have a situation. Blake just emailed the board claiming to have evidence of financial mismanagement under your leadership. He's calling for an emergency meeting tomorrow morning." My stomach dropped. "What evidence?" "He's not saying specifically, just alluding to irregular transactions and fiduciary negligence. It's vague but concerning enough that 3 board members are already demanding answers." "This is absurd," I said, struggling to keep my voice down. "I've barely had access to transaction systems, let alone enough time to mismanage anything. This is Vanessa and Blake trying to undermine me." "Most likely," Marcus agreed. "But we need to address it head on. Can you come in today? should prepare a comprehensive response. I closed my eyes, thinking of Emma waiting excitedly with her school project, of the promise I'd just made to help her, of James's accusation that I was abandoning commitments. I can't come in until this evening, I decided. I'm with my niece, and I made a commitment to her, but I can be there by 6. There was a slight pause. Are you sure that's wise? This attack is clearly coordinated. And my response won't be dictated by their timeline, I interrupted firmly. Family commitments matter. That's part of the company culture I intend to build. I'll see you at 6. After hanging up, I took a deep breath, centering myself. Then I returned to Emma's room with a smile that betrayed none of my inner turmoil. So, tell me about this essay you're writing, I said, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside her. For the next hour, I helped Emma organize her thoughts on global citizenship, suggesting resources and sharing age-appropriate stories from my fieldwork. Her enthusiasm was infectious, temporarily displacing my concerns about the brewing corporate storm. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged me fiercely. This was the best day ever, she declared. Can we do this every week? I smoothed her hair. I'll certainly try. Maybe next Sunday you can visit my apartment. I have some artifacts from my travels you might like to see. Her eyes widened with excitement. Really? Like actual things from other countries? Really, I promised. Including a beautiful tapestry made by a girl just about your age in a refugee camp in Greece. Ethan walked me to my car, concern evident in his expression. Everything okay with that call? Just work challenges, I said, unwilling to burden him with more family drama. Nothing I can't handle. He studied me for a moment. You know, it's okay to admit when things are hard, Liv. You don't have to be the unflappable humanitarian or the confident CEO all the time. His perception startled me. I'm fine, I insisted automatically. Sure you are, he said dryly. That's why you've lost weight, have shadows under your eyes, and jump every time your phone buzzes. Very fine behavior. I leaned against my car, suddenly exhausted. It's all happening so fast, Ethan. The company, the foundation, Vanessa's hostility. Sometimes I wonder if Dad made a mistake trusting me with all this. He didn't, Ethan said with surprising conviction. Look, I spent years being the family peacekeeper, watching from the sidelines. Vanessa is brilliant at business, but she sees people as tools or obstacles. You see them as human beings. That's why Dad chose you, not despite your humanitarian work, but because of it. His words echoed in my mind as I drove to the office, where I spent the next 6 hours with Marcus and our legal team, methodically dismantling Blake's vague accusations. By midnight, we had prepared a comprehensive report demonstrating the transparency and propriety of every transaction since I'd taken leadership. This should put the matter to rest, Marcus said, reviewing our work. Though I doubt it's the last attack we'll see. Probably not, I agreed wearily, but we'll handle each one as it comes. The emergency board meeting the following morning was tense, but ultimately anticlimactic. Blake appeared flustered when confronted with our detailed response, eventually admitting that his evidence consisted mainly of concerns about the strategic direction rather than actual financial improprieties. Pursuing social impact at the expense of profit margins represents a form of mismanagement, he insisted weakly. Except our projections show increased profit margins through client expansion and retention, I countered, displaying the relevant charts. Younger investors are specifically seeking ESG options. We're positioning ourselves ahead of market demand, not against it. By meeting's end, even Vanessa's allies on the board seemed irritated with the baseless accusations. As people filed out, Vanessa lingered, her expression unreadable. That was a waste of everyone's time, I said directly. Is this really how you want to play this, Vanessa? False accusations and innuendo? You won't last, she replied, gathering her designer handbag. This company is in my blood. You're just playing corporate dress-up. Maybe, I acknowledged. But while I'm playing, I'm also building something meaningful. Emma misses you, by the way. She's working on a global citizenship project that she's incredibly proud of. A flash of something, regret, longing, crossed Vanessa's face before the mask returned. I've been busy. Too busy for your daughter? That sounds familiar? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Vanessa stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? Just that work-life balance has never been our family's strong suit, I said more diplomatically. Dad missed most of our childhood events because the company always came first. Is that the legacy you want to continue with Emma? Don't psychoanalyze me, Olivia. You have no idea what pressures I'm under. Actually, I think I'm beginning to, I replied softly. And I'm realizing there might be a better way forward for all of us. She scoffed and turned to leave, but paused at the door. Emma's birthday is next month. She wants one of those ridiculous interactive science kits. I blinked, surprised by this olive branch, however small. Thank you for telling me. After she left, Patricia entered with a stack of messages. The Jordan Ministry of Education called twice. Something about the Salam School project? James's words echoed in my mind. Bridges need anchors on both shores. A plan began forming. Not a perfect solution, but perhaps a way to honor both worlds I now inhabited. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. James Torres, his familiar voice answered. James, it's Olivia. I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. Those kids deserve more than distant financial support. They deserve leadership from someone who knows them, who understands their needs firsthand. Are you coming back? Hope tinged his voice. Not permanently, I admitted. But I have a proposal. What if we created a hybrid model? I would split my time, 3 weeks here, 1 week on site every month. Technology allows remote work for much of what I do here. And we'd expand the program using foundation resources, hiring more local staff trained in our methods. There was a pause. It's unconventional. So am I laughed. So are you. That's why our programs worked when others failed. The board would need to approve your arrangement. Let me worry about the board, I said confidently. Is it worth exploring? Another pause, then. Yes. The children ask about you every day. Even a week each month would mean the world to them. After hanging up, I began drafting a formal proposal for the board. A new leadership model that would allow me to maintain meaningful connection with the humanitarian work that had shaped me, while still guiding the company's transformation. It wasn't a perfect solution, but perhaps there were no perfect solutions, only honest attempts to honor multiple commitments with integrity. That evening, as I finally left the office, I noticed Emma's picture of the global landmark still in my bag. I carefully pinned it to my office wall, a colorful reminder of the bridge I was attempting to build, between corporate power and humanitarian purpose, between family obligation and personal calling, between the seemingly separate parts of myself. The path ahead would be challenging. Vanessa's resistance, the board's skepticism, the logistics of international division of time, none of it would be easy. But for the first time since hearing my father's recording, I felt not just determined, but genuinely hopeful. Perhaps his greatest gift hadn't been the inheritance itself, but the challenge it represented, to integrate rather than choose, to transform rather than conform, to lead with both head and heart fully engaged. That was a legacy worth building, one day at a time. The boardroom fell silent as I concluded my presentation. 14 pairs of eyes studied me with expressions ranging from intrigue to outright skepticism. I had just proposed my hybrid leadership model, 3 weeks at headquarters, 1 week at the Salam School project each month, along with a restructuring of senior management responsibilities to accommodate this arrangement. Let me get this straight, said Richard Blackwell, our most conservative board member. You want to run a multi-billion-dollar financial firm part-time while jet-setting to the Middle East to teach refugee children? I met his gaze steadily. I want to maintain direct connection with the humanitarian work that informs our new direction. This isn't about teaching, though I've never considered that beneath me. It's about authentic leadership. How can I advocate for socially responsible investment if I'm completely disconnected from the communities we aim to support? Marcus Chen, our CFO, cleared his throat. The financial implications are minimal. The proposed executive restructuring actually reduces overhead while creating clearer lines of authority during Ms. Harrington's international weeks. It's unprecedented, insisted another board member. So was my father's decision to pivot toward ESG investments, I countered. So was appointing me as CEO. If we're going to truly transform this company, we can't be bound by how things have always been done. Patricia Winters, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Robert Harrington built this company by recognizing when the financial world was changing and positioning us ahead of those changes. This proposal continues that tradition of forward thinking. The discussion continued for another hour, with various concerns raised and addressed. Finally, it came time to vote. I held my breath as hands were raised. The final tally: 9 in favor, 5 opposed. Motion carries, announced the board secretary. The hybrid leadership model and executive restructuring are approved for a 6-month trial period, after which the board will conduct a comprehensive review. Relief washed over me. It wasn't a permanent victory, but it was a chance to prove this unconventional approach could work. As the meeting adjourned, board members filed out, some offering congratulations, others still looking dubious. Richard, Blackwell paused by my chair. I voted against you, he said bluntly, but I hope you prove me wrong. This company was your father's legacy. That's exactly why I'm doing this, I replied. To honor what he built while evolving it for the future. He studied me for a moment. Your father and I didn't always agree, but he never did anything halfway. I see that quality in you. With a nod, he departed. I was gathering my materials when the boardroom door opened again. Vanessa stood in the doorway, impeccably dressed as always, her expression unreadable. I heard the vote went your way, she said, stepping inside and closing the door. Congratulations. I regarded her cautiously. Thank you, though I doubt you mean that. She shrugged elegantly. I'm a practical person, Olivia. Fighting the inevitable wastes energy. The inevitable? Just last week you were orchestrating baseless accusations against me. A tactical error, she admitted, settling into a chair across from me. Blake was overzealous. I've taken a different approach since then. I studied her carefully, searching for the trap. What approach is that? Observation, assessment. I've been watching how you handle things. It's not what I expected. And what did you expect? Honestly, that you'd run this company into the ground with naive idealism, that you'd alienate our traditional clients while chasing social impact unicorns. She paused. But your ESG initiative has brought in 17 new institutional clients. The Peterson Foundation account alone is worth $50 million. I leaned back, surprised by this frank assessment. You've been keeping tabs on our client acquisitions? Of course I have, she said with a hint of her usual superiority. This company is still my life's work, regardless of who sits in the buy corner office. It doesn't have to be a competition, Vanessa. There's room for both of us here. She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her skirt. Perhaps your unique approach seems to be resonating with a certain market segment. And This hybrid leadership model creates some interesting possibilities. What are you suggesting? I asked cautiously. A functional division. You focus on your ESG initiatives, new market development, and your humanitarian interests. I maintain oversight of our traditional investment strategies and legacy client relationships. She leaned forward. Clients like stability. The sudden transition has been unsettling for many of them. The proposal made strategic sense, though I was wary of her motives. And reporting structure? Because I'm not creating a separate fiefdom for you to undermine me from. A flash of irritation crossed her face before she composed herself. We both report to the board, separate but equal divisions with clear performance metrics for each. And Blake? Her jaw tightened slightly. Blake is no longer a factor in my professional decisions. We're reassessing our relationship. This was unexpected. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. It's been a long time coming. Something vulnerable flickered in her eyes before disappearing. Emma deserves better than what she's been getting from me. I studied my sister, seeing beyond the polished exterior to the complexity beneath. Whatever her motivations, this tentative olive branch represented an opportunity, not just for company stability, but perhaps for family healing. I'll consider your proposal, I said carefully. Draft something formal and we'll discuss the details. She nodded, rising to leave. At the door, she paused. Emma's birthday party is Saturday at 2, the Science Museum's Discovery Room. She'd like you to come. I'll be there, I promised. After Vanessa left, Patricia entered with a knowing smile. That looked civil. Should I be concerned the building might collapse? I laughed. Possibly. She's proposing a division of leadership. Responsibilities. Patricia mused. Divide and conquer? Or genuine cooperation? That's what I need to figure out. Can you find me everything on her recent client interactions? I want to understand exactly what she's been doing while I've been focused on the board and the new initiatives. The next morning, I woke to several urgent texts from James and Jordan. Construction delays threatened the Salam School opening date. Supply chain issues with essential materials. Local officials raising unexpected regulatory concerns. Problems that would normally require my on-the-ground presence to resolve. I spent the early hours on video calls, leveraging connections and problem-solving across time zones. By mid-morning, the immediate crises were addressed, but the experience highlighted the challenges of my hybrid role. Some situations couldn't wait for my scheduled international week. Arriving at the office, I found Marcus waiting with his own urgent matter. The Davidson Fund, one of our oldest and largest clients, was threatening to withdraw their substantial portfolio. Their representative wanted a meeting with the real Harrington in charge, clearly implying Vanessa. Did she contact them? I asked directly. Marcus shook his head. No evidence of that. This seems to be their own initiative. Mr. Davidson and your father had a close personal relationship. The family may not be comfortable with the leadership. Change. Schedule the meeting, I decided, but invite Vanessa to join us. If they want a Harrington they're comfortable with, we'll give them two. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Are you sure that's wise? Your sister hasn't exactly been your strongest advocate. Let's find out if that's changing, I replied, thinking about our recent conversation. We need to start building bridges somewhere. The meeting with Howard Davidson, the elderly patriarch of the Davidson family, was scheduled for that afternoon. I used the intervening hours to research his relationship with my father and review the family's extensive investment history with our firm. When Vanessa appeared at my office door 15 minutes before the appointment, I was surprised by her prompt response to my invitation. "Shall we discuss strategy?" she asked, taking a seat without waiting for an invitation. Davidson is threatening to pull his accounts because he wants you handling his investments, not me, I stated directly. She nodded. I expected as much. Howard and Dad had a standing golf game for 20 years. He attended my wedding. Of course he's more comfortable with me. So what's our approach? Good cop? Bad cop? Do we split the account management? Vanessa studied me for a moment, then said something I never expected. We present a united front. The Harrington sisters carrying forward our father's legacy together. Different strengths, shared values. Shared values. I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Integrity, excellence, client focus. She ticked them off on manicured fingers. We may approach them differently, but those values are non-negotiable for both of us. That's what Howard needs to hear. I sat back, genuinely surprised by her insight. That's actually perfect. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I've been doing this a long time, Olivia. Give me some credit. The meeting went remarkably well. Howard Davidson, though initially reserved with me, warmed considerably as Vanessa and I presented a seamless vision of complementary leadership. When he expressed concern about our ESG initiatives, Vanessa surprised me again. Innovation balanced with tradition, Howard, she explained smoothly. Olivia's expanding our offerings to capture emerging markets while I ensure our core strategies maintain the reliability you've always valued. It's diversification at the leadership level. By meeting's end, not only had Davidson committed to keeping his accounts with us, but he'd expressed interest in exploring our new ESG options for a portion of his portfolio, just to see what all the fuss is about. As we walked him to the elevator, he took both our hands in his. Robert would be proud to see his daughters working together like this. He worried about you two, you know. Thought you were too different to ever understand each other. After he departed, Vanessa and I stood in silent contemplation. That went well, I finally said. Yes, she agreed. It did. Your proposal for divided leadership responsibilities. Let's discuss it further. She nodded, professional mask firmly in place again. I'll have my assistant set something up. As the week progressed, I found myself cautiously optimistic about this unexpected shift in dynamics with Vanessa. Our second meeting to discuss leadership division was productive, focusing on complementary strengths rather than competition. We even found ourselves actually laughing together, over an absurd client request. Saturday arrived with perfect spring weather for Emma's birthday celebration at the Science Museum. I arrived early, carrying a gift that had required pulling some international strings, a science kit developed by refugee engineers featuring local materials and technologies from Jordan, along with video messages from children at the Salam school. The museum's discovery room had been transformed with decorations and interactive science stations. A small group of Emma's friends were already engaged in experiments involving bubbles and static electricity. Ethan spotted me first, raising a hand in greeting from where he was helping a child with safety goggles. You made it, he said, looking relieved. Emma's been asking about you all morning. Wouldn't miss it, I assured him, scanning the room. Is Vanessa here yet? Over by the snack table, trying to ensure the organic juice boxes are properly arranged. He rolled his eyes good-naturedly. Some things never change. I made my way through the excited children to where my sister was indeed meticulously organizing refreshments. She looked different today, still polished, but in casual slacks and a blouse rather than her usual power suit, her hair in a simple ponytail. Need help? I offered. She glanced up, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. You came. I said I would. I placed my gift on the designated table. Where's the birthday girl? Planetarium show. They'll be back in 5 minutes. She hesitated, then added, Thank you for coming. It means a lot to her. Before I could respond, Emma burst into the room with her friends, chattering excitedly about the stars they'd seen. She spotted me and raced over, flinging her arms around my waist. Aunt Olivia, you came. Dad said you might be too busy with work. Never too busy for your birthday, I assured her, returning the hug. How does it feel to be 9? Exactly the same as 8, she declared seriously. Except Dad says I can stay up 30 minutes later now. The party proceeded with the organized chaos typical of children's gatherings. Vanessa orchestrated activities with efficiency, while Ethan provided enthusiastic encouragement. I found myself managing the science experiment station, helping small hands mix non-toxic chemicals to create colorful reactions. During a lull, Vanessa appeared beside me with a cup of coffee. "You're good with them," she observed, nodding towards the children. "Patient." "Working with refugee kids teaches patience," I replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Nothing goes as planned, but the results are often more interesting that way." She seemed to consider this. "Emma talks about your work all the time now. She has questions I can't answer." "She's welcome to ask me anything." Vanessa hesitated, then said quietly, "I'm not good at this, the mothering part. The corporate world makes sense to me. Clear objectives, measurable outcomes. Children are unpredictable." The vulnerability in her admission caught me off. "Sorry, nobody's a natural at parenting, Vanessa. It's all trial and error." "You seem to connect with her effortlessly." "I'm the fun aunt who shows up with exotic gifts," I pointed out. "That's different from day-to-day parenting. Besides, you and Emma share so much. Your organizational skills, your attention to detail. She arranged her science project notes exactly like your financial reports." Vanessa looked surprised. "She did?" "Complete with color-coded tabs and executive summaries," I confirmed. "She proudly told me she does it like Mom does." Something shifted in Vanessa's expression, a softening I'd rarely seen. Before she could respond, it was time for cake and presents. Emma's delight with my gift was everything I'd hoped for. She immediately wanted to video call the Salam school children to thank them, a suggestion Vanessa surprisingly supported. As the party wound down and parents collected sugar-infused children, Ethan, Vanessa, Emma, and I found ourselves gathered around a table littered with discarded wrapping paper. "Best birthday ever," Emma declared, still wearing the friendship bracelet made by a girl her age in Jordan. "I'm glad you enjoyed it, sweetheart," Vanessa said, awkwardly smoothing Emma's hair. "I'm sorry I haven't been around much lately. Work has been complicated." Emma regarded her mother solemnly. "Dad says you and Aunt Olivia are figuring out how to work together without fighting. Is that true?" Vanessa and I exchanged glances. "We're trying," I confirmed. "Good," Emma said decisively. "Because I have an idea for my Global Citizens project, but I need both of you to help." "What's your idea?" Ethan asked, curious. Emma's expression turned serious. "I want to help kids like the ones in Aunt Olivia's school. But I also want to use money stuff like Mom does. Can we make a kid bank or something, where kids help other kids?" The simplicity and brilliance of her suggestion left us momentarily speechless. Vanessa recovered first. "You mean like a foundation specifically, focused on children helping children, with financial education components?" Emma nodded eagerly. "Yeah. Kids here could learn about money and business while helping kids in other places, like a kids' investment club, but for good stuff." I found myself smiling at the elegance of the concept. "That's actually a remarkable idea, Emma. It combines financial literacy with global citizenship." "We could pilot it through the Harrington Foundation," Vanessa suggested, surprising me again. "Start with Emma's class, then expand if it works." "You'd help with that?" I asked her directly. She met my gaze steadily. "Financial education is something I believe in, and if it can be channeled toward meaningful impact rather than just accumulation, well, that might be worth exploring." In that moment, I glimpsed the possibility of genuine reconciliation, not just professional cooperation, but familial healing. The path that had seemed so fraught with conflict now revealed an unexpected fork. The potential for collaboration that honored both our strengths. As we helped clean up the party debris, Vanessa pulled me aside. "I've been thinking about what you said, about honoring both worlds. I'm not ready to admit you're right about everything," she added quickly. "But this kid's foundation idea, it has merit. Perhaps we could work on it together." "I'd like that," I said sincerely. "I've also been reviewing the trust provisions regarding Emma's education fund." She looked uncomfortable. "The money Blake and I borrowed. I've started repaying it, with interest. The admission must have cost her considerable pride." "That's a good first step," I acknowledged. She nodded stiffly. "I'm trying to do better for Emma." As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how dramatically situations could change when people found common ground. The sister who had tried to erase me from my family's legacy was now cautiously exploring collaboration. The company that had seemed an obligation was becoming a platform for meaningful impact. The two worlds I'd tried to bridge were starting to merge in unexpected ways. My phone rang, James calling from Jordan with updates on the school construction. The regulatory issues had been resolved, and the local officials were now actively supporting the project. As we discussed logistics for my upcoming visit, I found myself filled with a sense of expanding possibility rather than divided obligation. "You sound different," James observed. "More integrated." "I feel different," I admitted, "like I'm finally finding a way to be whole rather than fragmented." "The prodigal humanitarian returning to capitalism with purpose?" I laughed. "Something like that, though perhaps less prodigal and more evolutionary." After the call, I stopped by my apartment window, gazing at the city lights. The path ahead would still hold challenges. Vanessa's cooperation might be tenuous. The board would scrutinize our hybrid model closely, and balancing international commitments would require constant attention. But for the first time, these challenges felt like stepping stones rather than obstacles, opportunities to build something truly meaningful from the unexpected inheritance my father had left me. Not just financial resources, but the chance to heal family wounds, to bridge separate worlds, and to create impact on multiple levels simultaneously. As Emma had so innocently suggested, perhaps the answer wasn't choosing between finance and humanitarian work, between family obligation and personal calling. Perhaps it was weaving them together into something stronger and more effective than either could be alone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel genuine hope for the journey ahead. A journey of integration rather than division, of building bridges instead of walls. My father's recording had revealed more than just the truth about the trust. It had revealed the possibility of a new way forward for all of us. The desert air hit me like a warm embrace as I stepped off the plane in Amman. After 2 months of dividing my time between corporate headquarters and the Salam School project, the familiar scent of Jordan, spices, dust, and jasmine, felt like coming home to a part of myself I'd feared losing. James waited at the arrival gate, his face breaking into a wide smile when he spotted me. "The CEO returns to the trenches," he called, pulling me into a quick hug. "How was the flight?" "Long but productive," I said, falling into step beside him. "I reviewed the foundation grant proposals. We have some promising applicants." "Always working," he teased, taking my carry-on. "Some things never change, even with that corner office of yours." The drive from the airport to the Salam school site took us through increasingly rural landscapes. James updated me on developments since my last visit: construction progress, teacher training, community engagement initiatives. Despite the initial delays, the project was back on schedule, energized by the increased resources from the Harrington Foundation. "The local officials have completely changed their tune," James noted as we turned onto a dusty road. "Amazing what properly filed paperwork and a few well-placed international partnerships can accomplish." "Speaking of partnerships," I said, "how's the collaboration with the Women's Cooperative going?" See for yourself, he replied as we crested a hill, revealing the school campus below. The transformation since my last visit was remarkable. What had been foundation trenches and skeletal frames were now completed structures. Solar panels gleamed on south-facing roofs. A playground took shape in the central courtyard. Most striking was the vibrant mural covering the main building's facade, a collaborative artwork created by refugee women and children, depicting educational themes interwoven with cultural symbols of hope and resilience. It's beautiful, I breathed, taking it all in. And functional, James added proudly. We're on track to open in 3 weeks. The enrollment list is already full, with a waiting list of 63 children. As we parked, a group of children, playing soccer nearby, recognized our vehicle and came running. They surrounded us with excited greetings, their initial shyness from previous visits replaced by familiar warmth. "Miss Olivia, did you bring the books?" asked Amira, a bright-eyed 10-year-old who reminded me of Emma. "Of course," I assured her, opening my bag to reveal a selection of children's science books, donations from Emma's class following a Zoom cultural exchange. "And the letters from America?" asked Sammy, her younger brother. "Right here," I confirmed, producing a packet of correspondence from Emma's Kids Helping Kids initiative, the program inspired by her birthday party idea, which had rapidly expanded beyond her classroom to 3 schools in our district. The afternoon passed in a whirlwind of activity, touring the completed classrooms, meeting with teachers, and reviewing operational protocols. Unlike my previous visits as a distant foundation representative, this time I was deeply engaged in both strategic discussions and hands-on preparations, painting classroom murals alongside refugee mothers and testing science equipment with the teaching staff. As evening approached, James and I sat on plastic chairs outside the administrative building, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and rose. "You seem different," he observed, passing me a cup of mint tea. "More centered." I considered this. I think I am. This hybrid model is challenging, but it feels right. Each world informs and strengthens the other. "The board is still on board?" he asked with a hint of skepticism. Increasingly so. The Davidson account expansion was a turning point. Once other clients saw Howard Davidson, the most traditional investor imaginable, allocating funds to our ESG initiatives, the stigma began to fade. I smiled. It helps that our returns have been exceptional. "And your sister? Still trying to undermine you?" I hesitated, unsure how to explain the evolving dynamic with Vanessa. "It's complicated. We're not exactly friends, but we're finding ways to collaborate rather than compete. The division of leadership responsibilities is working better than I expected." James raised an eyebrow. "The woman who tried to erase you from your family's legacy is now your cooperative partner? That's quite a transformation." "People can surprise you," I said, thinking of the recent progress. "Especially when they find common ground." My phone buzzed with a video call request from Emma. I answered to find her excited face filling. The screen, Vanessa visible in the background. "Aunt Olivia, is that the school? Can you show us?" Emma bubbled. I flipped the camera to pan across the school campus, narrating the various features and explaining the sustainable design elements. "Mom says we can come visit when it opens," Emma exclaimed. "She's going to look at expanding the Kids Helping Kids program internationally." I glanced at Vanessa, surprised. She moved into frame beside Emma. "Don't look so shocked," she said dryly. "The pilot program has shown promising results. Emma's class has raised nearly $5,000 through their child-friendly investment strategies, and the financial literacy metrics are impressive. It makes sense to explore international applications." "That's wonderful," I managed, genuinely moved by this development. "The opening ceremony is in 3 weeks. You're both welcome." "We'll be there," Vanessa confirmed, her expression professional, but not cold. I've been reviewing potential partnerships between Harrington Financial and several international development organizations. We should discuss the synergies when you return. After saying goodbye to Emma, I sat in silent contemplation, processing this latest evidence of Vanessa's evolving perspective. Well, James said finally, I've seen a lot of unlikely things in humanitarian work, but that might take the prize. I laughed. It's still early days. We have years of complicated history to navigate. But for Emma's sake, we're both trying. The next morning brought meetings with local officials and community leaders. I was in the middle of negotiating transportation arrangements for rural students when my phone rang with Marcus Chen's number. Given the time difference, a call from our CFO at this hour suggested urgency. Marcus, is everything all right? His voice was tight. We have a situation. Blake Wells has filed a lawsuit against the company, alleging wrongful termination and seeking damages of $50 million. I stepped outside for privacy. That's absurd. He wasn't terminated. He resigned when I suggested an audit of the legal department. He's claiming constructive dismissal, says he was forced out through a hostile work environment created specifically to undermine him after the will reading. I pinched the bridge of my nose, frustration mounting. This feels like another attempt to destabilize my leadership. Have you spoken with Vanessa? There was a slight pause. That's the interesting part. She called me before I could reach her. She's furious with Blake. Says he's acting without her knowledge or consent, and she wants no part of it. This was unexpected. She's not supporting him? Quite the opposite. She's offered to provide evidence that he resigned voluntarily after she confronted him about ethical concerns in his management of client accounts. The implications were significant. By providing such evidence, Vanessa would be publicly siding with me against her husband. Whatever their personal issues, this represented a definitive professional choice. Let's proceed carefully, I advised Marcus. Have legal prepare a comprehensive response, but don't file immediately. I want to speak with Vanessa directly when I return tomorrow. After ending the call, I rejoined the meeting, forcing myself to focus on the immediate needs of the school project. This International Week had reinforced the importance of maintaining connection with the humanitarian work that gave purpose to my corporate role. Whatever challenges awaited at headquarters, I would face them better for having spent time here, grounded in the tangible impact of our efforts. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Ethan with the subject line, "Finally taking Dad's advice." Attached were architectural designs for environmentally sustainable school buildings, specifically adapted for refugee communities, along with a thoughtful analysis of cost-effective construction methods using local materials and labor. I've been working on these for months, his message read. Emma's enthusiasm for the Salam project finally gave me the courage to share them. If the foundation could use designs like these for future schools, I'd be honored to contribute. Maybe this old architect has something valuable to offer after all. The designs were remarkable, innovative yet practical, beautiful yet functional. I forwarded them to our project manager with a note highlighting the potential for incorporating elements into future expansions. Then I called Ethan, catching him in his home office late at night. These are extraordinary, I told him without preamble. Why have you been hiding this talent? He laughed self-consciously. Fear, mostly. Easier to manage properties than risk creating something new and being judged for it. Well, consider yourself judged, positively. The foundation could absolutely use designs like these. Would you consider a consulting role? We're planning 3 more schools in the next 2 years. There was a pause. Are you serious? Completely. These designs solve problems we've been grappling with for months. The cost-efficient water management system alone would be revolutionary for our desert locations. I'd need to scale back at Blake's firm, he said thoughtfully. Though given recent events, That might be happening anyway. You've heard about the lawsuit? Vanessa called me. He hesitated. She's changing, Liv. This situation with Blake seems to have triggered some deep reflection. She spent an hour yesterday playing soccer with Emma. Actually playing, not just watching from the sidelines checking emails. This aligned with the subtle shifts I'd been observing. People can surprise you, I said again, the phrase becoming something of a mantra. Sometimes they even surprise themselves, Ethan replied thoughtfully. The next day, as I prepared to leave Jordan, I visited each classroom of the nearly completed school, soaking in the tangible results of years of dedication. In the science room, a group of women from the local refugee community was installing equipment, their children helping with smaller tasks. Amira spotted me in the doorway and ran over, tugging my hand. Come see what we made for you. She led me to a wall where a mosaic had been installed, intricate tile work forming an image of two bridges crossing a river, meeting in the middle to create a stronger whole. Beneath it, a plaque read, 2 Worlds, 1 Purpose, with gratitude to Olivia Harrington and the Harrington Foundation. Tears pricked my eyes as Amira's mother explained through a translator. The 2 bridges represent what you have taught us, that different paths can meet and become stronger together. That help can come from unexpected places, that what seems broken can be made into something new and beautiful. I was deeply moved by their perception and the symbolism they had created. This mosaic captured exactly what I had been trying to build, not just physical structures, but bridges between worlds often seen as separate and incompatible. My return flight to the States gave me time to prepare for the challenges awaiting at headquarters. I drafted a strategic response to Blake's lawsuit, developed next steps for the Kids Helping Kids international expansion, and refined the proposal for incorporating Ethan's designs into future projects. Patricia met me at the airport, immediately, updating me on developments in my absence. Blake's lawsuit had garnered some industry attention, but the initial market reaction had been minimal. Our stock price had actually increased following a positive quarterly report. Vanessa has been remarkably proactive in stabilizing client relationships, Patricia noted as we drove to my apartment. She's personally called our top 20 institutional clients to reassure them of continuity despite the legal distraction. That's surprising, I admitted. Patricia smiled slightly. There have been several surprises. The board reviewed initial data from our hybrid leadership model trial period. The preliminary assessment is positive. Decision-making efficiency has actually improved with the clearer division of responsibilities between you and Vanessa. After a quick stop at my apartment to refresh, I headed to the office where I found Vanessa waiting in my conference room with a stack of documents and a determined expression. Welcome back, she said briskly. We need to address Blake's lawsuit immediately. I studied her carefully, noting the tension in her posture and the shadows under her expertly concealed with makeup. How are you doing with all this? He is still your husband. Something flickered across her face. Pain, anger, resignation. Soon to be ex-husband. I've filed for divorce. Vanessa, I'm sorry. She waved away my sympathy. Don't be. It's been coming for years. Emma deserves better than a home built on appearances and deception. She straightened, visibly shifting to professional mode. But personal matters aside, this lawsuit threatens the company's stability. I've prepared a comprehensive response strategy. For the next hour, we reviewed her meticulously organized plan, a combination of legal countermeasures, client communication protocols, and media management. Her willingness to provide documented evidence of Blake's voluntary resignation was the linchpin of the defense strategy. You understand what this means? I asked directly. You're choosing the company, and by extension me, over your husband. I'm choosing integrity, she corrected, meeting my gaze steadily. Something I lost sight of somewhere along the way. She hesitated, then added quietly, "Dad was right about that in his recording, about what our family's values should be." The acknowledgement hung between us, a tacit acceptance of our father's posthumous assessment and a small but significant step toward reconciliation. "There's something else we should discuss," she continued, pulling out another folder. "The Kids Helping Kids program. Emma is absolutely flourishing with it, and the educational outcomes for her class have exceeded expectations. I've been exploring how we might scale it internationally." She presented a detailed proposal for expanding the program to partner with schools near our international humanitarian projects, creating direct connections between children in privileged communities and those in need. The financial literacy curriculum would be adapted for both audiences, with age-appropriate investment activities funding real-world projects identified by the recipient communities. "This is remarkable," I said, reviewing the thoughtful implementation plan. "You've put substantial work into this." "It matters to Emma," she said simply, "and I'm beginning to see the value in what you've been trying to build. A different kind of legacy than what Dad originally created, but perhaps one that honors him in a more meaningful way." This admission, delivered without fanfare but with evident sincerity, represented a profound shift from the sister who had once tried to erase me from our family's legacy. "We could present this jointly to the board," I suggested, "as a signature initiative bridging our respective divisions." She nodded, something almost like enthusiasm animating her features. "I've already run preliminary numbers. The program costs are minimal relative to the positive brand impact and client engagement opportunities. Several major institutional clients have expressed interest in supporting youth financial literacy initiatives with social impact components." "Always the pragmatist," I smiled. "One of us has to be," she replied with a hint of her old sharpness, though without the former hostility. The remainder of the day passed in a whirlwind of meetings and decisions. By evening, our legal team had filed our response to Blake's lawsuit. The Public Relations Department had issued a measured statement, expressing confidence in our position, and the management committee had been briefed on the situation. As I prepared to leave for the day, Ethan called with news that the foundation board had responded enthusiastically to his architectural designs, requesting a formal presentation at their next meeting. His excitement was palpable, the tentative rebirth of a passion long suppressed by fear and family expectations. "I'm actually looking forward to Monday for the first time in years," he confessed. "Drawing these plans feels like waking up something inside me that's been asleep for too long." Outside my office, I found Vanessa still at her desk, reviewing documents despite the late hour. Her determined focus reminded me of our father, though perhaps tempered now with something he had often lacked: perspective on what truly mattered, beyond the balance sheet. "You should go home," I suggested gently. "Emma's probably waiting." She glanced up, momentarily disoriented. "Is it that late already? Emma's staying with a friend tonight. I was going to keep working on the international program proposal." "It will wait until tomorrow," I said firmly. "Take time for yourself. The company won't collapse if you leave before midnight." A wry smile touched her lips. "Advice I never thought I'd hear from my workaholic humanitarian sister. Let's just say I'm learning about balance from both sides of the bridge," I replied. "Come on, I'm heading out too. We can share a car." As we rode the elevator down together, and comfortable silence settled between us. Not the warmth of fully reconciled siblings, but no longer the icy tension of adversaries. We were finding a new equilibrium, built on mutual respect, if not yet complete trust. Outside, the city lights glimmered against the evening sky, reminiscent of stars over the Jordanian desert. Two worlds, seemingly separate yet connected by invisible threads of shared humanity. In the reflection of the car window, I caught glimpse of Vanessa's profile alongside my own, different, yet undeniably connected by more than just genetics. "Emma asked me something interesting yesterday," Vanessa said suddenly as our car navigated the evening traffic. She wanted to know if you and I hated each other when we were kids. What did you tell her? The truth. That we were close once, before we started measuring ourselves against each other instead of just being sisters. She paused. I showed her photos from that summer we built the treehouse together. Remember? Dad said it would never stand, but we designed it anyway. It lasted 3 storms before collapsing. The memory surfaced unexpectedly. Vanessa at 12, me at 9, working, together with determined focus despite our father's skepticism. You were the architect, I recalled. I was the builder. We made a good team back then. We did, she agreed softly. Maybe we still could. As the car approached her neighborhood, Vanessa surprised me again. Would you like to come in for a while? I have those old family albums out. Emma's been asking questions about our parents, about how they were before. The invitation represented more than casual reminiscence. It was an opening, a tentative step toward rebuilding what had been broken. I'd like that, I said sincerely. Perhaps this was the greatest legacy our father had unknowingly left us. Not the wealth or the company, or even the foundation, but this unexpected chance to rediscover the connection we had lost along the way. To build a new kind of bridge, not between corporate finance and humanitarian work, but between 2 sisters who had forgotten how to see each other beyond the roles they had chosen. As we walked together toward her front door, I thought of the mosaic at the Salam school. 2 bridges meeting to form something stronger than either could be alone. Sometimes the most important transformations weren't the obvious external changes, but the subtle internal shifts that allowed new possibilities to emerge from old wounds. The sister who had once tried to remove me from our family's trust had, in an unexpected way, helped guide me toward a different kind of inheritance. One measured not in dollars, but in authentic purpose, integrated values, and renewed connection. Some legacies couldn't be recorded in legal documents or captured in financial statements. Some required the quiet courage to build bridges across divides that once seemed uncrossable. And in that building, to discover that the journey itself might be the most valuable inheritance of all. 1 year after hearing my father's posthumous recording, I stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of the Harrington Financial Group headquarters, surveying the gathered crowd. The annual shareholder meeting had transformed from a dry financial presentation into a vibrant celebration of integrated purpose, complete with interactive demonstrations from our international projects and presentations by children from the now global Kids Helping Kids initiative. When my father left me his majority stake in this company, I began, many questioned whether a humanitarian aid worker could successfully lead a financial institution. The concerns were valid. Our worlds seemed fundamentally incompatible. One, focused on maximizing shareholder returns, the other on maximizing human potential. Vanessa sat in the front row, elegant in a tailored suit, her expression attentive. Beside her, Emma beamed proudly, now 10 years old and confidently wearing a junior financial advisor badge for her role demonstrating the youth investment program to shareholders. Today, 1 year later, the results speak for themselves. I continued. Our stock price has increased 27%. Client acquisition in the under 40 demographic is up 63%. Employee satisfaction metrics show double-digit improvements. And most significantly, our social impact initiatives have directly improved the lives of over 200,000 people across 12 countries. Applause rippled through the audience, institutional investors mingling with community partners and international guests. None of this would have been possible through traditional leadership models. It required something different, a conscious integration of seemingly opposite approaches. I gestured toward Vanessa. My sister and co-leader, Vanessa Harrington, deserves equal credit for this transformation. Her financial acumen combined with my humanitarian experience has created something neither of us could have built alone. Vanessa inclined her head slightly, accepting the acknowledgement with characteristic poise. Our relationship had evolved over the past year, not into the carefree closeness of childhood, but into something perhaps more valuable. A partnership, built on mutual respect, complementary strengths, and shared purpose. After my speech, as shareholders and guests mingled around interactive displays showcasing our various initiatives, Mr. Whitfield approached, his expression thoughtful. "Your father would be proud," he said, surveying the energetic scene. Though, I suspect he'd be quite surprised as well. "By the company's performance?" I asked. "By that, certainly," he agreed. "But more so by what's happened between you and Vanessa. I don't think he anticipated reconciliation when he made those trust amendments. He hoped perhaps, but didn't expect it." I watched my sister across the room, patiently explaining our financial metrics to a skeptical investor. "Neither did I admitted. But it turns out family legacies can be transformed as much as corporate ones. The lawsuit with Blake had been settled 6 months earlier, not through protracted legal battles, but through a mediated resolution that Vanessa had orchestrated. In exchange for withdrawing his claims, he received a modest settlement and a non-disclosure agreement. The divorce had been finalized shortly thereafter, with Vanessa ensuring generous visitation rights while maintaining primary custody of Emma. "Ms. Harrington?" A timid voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find Samira, a 14-year-old from the Salam school, who had traveled with a small delegation for the shareholder meeting. "May I show you something?" She led me to a display where students from Jordan and America were demonstrating their joint science project, an innovative water filtration system designed collaboratively through virtual exchanges and built simultaneously on both continents. "We have clean water in our community now," Samira explained proudly, "and the American students learned about conservation techniques they're implementing in their school." Nearby, Ethan was explaining the architectural features of our newest school buildings to an attentive group of investors. His transformation had been perhaps the most surprising, from reluctant property manager to passionate architectural innovator. The sustainable design division he now headed within the foundation had attracted international recognition for its cost-effective, environmentally responsive approaches to humanitarian architecture. Emma bounded over, grabbing my hand. "Aunt Olivia! The investors love our presentation. 3 of them want to sponsor new Kids Helping Kids chapters at their local schools." "That's wonderful," I told her, genuinely impressed. "You're quite the financial educator." "Mom says I have your gift for explaining complicated things simply," she confided, glancing toward Vanessa with unmistakable admiration. The mother-daughter relationship had blossomed as Vanessa gradually shifted her priorities, discovering that she could maintain professional excellence while also being truly present in her daughter's life. As the event wound down, the core family group, Vanessa, Emma, Ethan, and I, gathered in my office for a private moment before the evening's charitable gala. The space had transformed over the past year, now featuring artifacts from our international projects alongside financial awards and recognition for our innovative business model. "Quite a day," Ethan remarked, loosening his tie and settling into a chair. "The board chairman actually asked me to consider joining as the sustainability advisor. Me, on a financial board." "You should do it," Vanessa encouraged, surprising us with her enthusiasm. The sustainability metrics are increasingly important to institutional investors. We need someone who genuinely understands both the environmental and financial implications. I smiled at this evidence of her evolution. The Vanessa of a year ago would have scoffed at adding a creative type to the board, regardless of his expertise. Emma wandered to the far wall where a simple frame held the letter my father had left me, the one acknowledging his pride in my humanitarian work. Beside it hung a new edition, a professional photograph of the completed Salam school, with children and teachers gathered in front, and above them, the mosaic of 2 bridges meeting. "I've been thinking," Emma said thoughtfully, "about Grandpa's recording that started everything." We all grew quiet. Though the contents of the recording had been discussed, Emma had never heard it directly, a deliberate choice to shield her from the most painful revelations about her parents. "Do you think he knew what would happen?" she asked. "That instead of everyone fighting forever, we'd all end up working together?" Vanessa and I exchanged glances, the question striking at something we'd both considered. "I don't think he could have predicted this specific outcome," I said carefully. "But I believe he understood something fundamental about both of us that we hadn't yet recognized in ourselves." "What's that?" Emma asked. "That beneath our differences we share the same core values," Vanessa answered, surprising me again. "Integrity, commitment, excellence. We just expressed them in different ways." "And when those values finally aligned," I added, "we could build something neither of us could create alone." Emma considered this, then nodded with the seriousness of a child grappling with adult complexities. "Like my science project with Samira. She knows different things than I do, but together we made something better than either of us could alone." "Exactly like that," I confirmed, touched by her perceptiveness. A knock at the door announced Patricia, reminding us of the evening's schedule. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa lingered behind. "I have something for you," she said, once we were alone. She removed a small package from her bag, uncharacteristically hesitant. "I found it when cleaning out the storage unit after the divorce." I unwrapped the package to find a faded photograph in a simple frame. It showed two young girls, Vanessa around 11, me about 8, proudly standing before the treehouse. We'd built together. Despite its crooked walls and uneven roof, our expressions radiated pure triumph. "Dad took that the day before the treehouse collapsed," Vanessa explained. "I'd forgotten all about it until Emma started asking about what we were like as children." I traced the image, memories flooding back. "You were so determined to prove him wrong about the design. And you were fearless about climbing to nail the highest boards," she recalled. "We were quite a team before we started competing instead of collaborating," I finished quietly. "I've been thinking about that a lot this past year," she admitted. "About when everything changed between us. I think maybe it wasn't one moment, but a series of small choices, measuring ourselves against each other instead of defining success on our own terms." The insight resonated deeply. "And now?" "Now I'm learning that success looks different than I thought." She smiled faintly. "Emma told me yesterday that she's never been prouder of me, not because of any promotion or acquisition, but because I helped a classmate's family access resources through the foundation when they faced eviction." "That's real success, Mom," she said. "Wise beyond her years," I observed. "She has good role models now," Vanessa acknowledged. "Not just me trying to prove something, but you, Ethan, the teams we've built, people pursuing meaningful impact alongside financial success." As we walked toward the elevator, I realized how profoundly our perspectives had shifted. The sister who had once convinced our parents to remove me from the trust had, through an unexpected series of events, helped me discover a far more valuable inheritance than money alone could provide. The integration of purpose and profession, conscience and career, family bonds, and individual calling. The charitable gala that evening represented the culmination of our year-long transformation. Corporate donors mingling with international humanitarian partners, financial analysts engaged in deep conversation with refugee educators, children from privileged backgrounds confidently presenting alongside their counterparts from struggling communities. From the edge of the ballroom, I watched this vibrant cross-pollination of worlds with a profound sense of fulfillment. Mr. Whitfield joined me, nodding appreciatively at the scene. "When your father altered that trust, I never imagined this outcome," he confessed. "I expected you might run the company ethically, perhaps direct more resources toward charitable causes. But this—" He gestured at the integrated initiative displays, the diverse attendees, the tangible energy of purposeful collaboration. This is transformation, not just transition. It wasn't a straight path, I acknowledged. And we're still learning, still evolving the model. The best legacies are living things, he observed thoughtfully. They grow beyond their creator's original vision. Across the room, Emma was introducing Samira to a group of potential youth program sponsors, her natural confidence mirroring both Vanessa's poise and my passionate advocacy. Nearby, Ethan was deep in conversation with international development experts, sketching concepts on cocktail napkins as they discussed adaptation of his designs for different climates. And Vanessa, who once valued only financial metrics and social status, was attentively listening to a refugee teacher describe educational challenges, her questions thoughtful and focused on practical solutions rather than publicity opportunities. None of us were the same people we had been a year ago when that recording revealed uncomfortable truths and set us on this unexpected journey. The trust that had once divided us had, ironically, become the catalyst for building something far more valuable than financial security. A family united not by obligation but by shared purpose, and a company that measured success beyond the balance sheet. As the evening concluded, the four of us, Vanessa, Emma, Ethan, and I, gathered for a moment on the building's rooftop terrace. The city lights stretched before us, a tapestry of possibilities in the darkness. "Look," Emma pointed. "Upward, you can actually see stars tonight." We tilted our heads skyward, finding rare pinpoints of light penetrating the urban glow. They reminded me of the brilliant desert skies above the Salam School, worlds apart, yet connected by the same constellations. Dad used to take us stargazing at the lake house, Ethan remembered. Remember how he taught us to navigate by the North Star? He said it was the most important lesson in finance, Vanessa recalled with a hint of irony. Always know your fixed point when everything else is changing. Maybe he was right, I mused. Just not in the way he meant? Our fixed point isn't profit or performance metrics. It's purpose, knowing why we're doing what we do, even when the path changes. Emma slipped her hand into mine on one side, and Vanessa's on the other, creating a physical link between sisters once divided. "I think Grandpa would like what we built," she said, with a child's simple certainty. "It's better than what was there before." Looking at the unlikely family we had become, not perfect, still navigating occasional tensions and differing perspectives, but fundamentally aligned in shared purpose, I knew she was right. The Executor's secret recording had revealed more than just my parents' final wishes. It had revealed the possibility of transformation, of family bonds rewoven into new patterns, of professional purpose aligned with personal values, of bridges built across seemingly impassable divides. Some inheritances couldn't be quantified in legal documents or measured in financial statements. The most valuable legacies were written in lives changed, perspectives broadened, and relationships healed. In the end, perhaps that was what my father had intended all along, not to punish or reward, but to challenge us to become more than we had been, individually and together, under the rare visible stars, surrounded by the family we were rebuilding and the purpose we now shared. I silently thanked him for the inheritance I had never expected. The chance to come full circle, from exclusion to inclusion, from division to integration, from broken trust to something far stronger and more enduring than any legal document could ensure. Some journeys begin with loss only to end with unexpected abundance. Mine had started with a recording that revealed betrayal, yet ultimately led to a discovery far more precious than any trust fund. The discovery that our greatest wealth lies not in what we possess, but in what we build together. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.